December 7th, 1941. 7:48 a.m. The sky over Oahu is clear, peaceful. American sailors are eating breakfast, some are still asleep, and then, out of nowhere, the first Japanese Zero dives through the clouds. Bombs fall. Torpedoes slice through the water. The battleship USS Arizona explodes, taking 1,177 men with it. In 2 hours, the Japanese will sink or damage 18 ships, destroy 188 aircraft, and kill 2,403 Americans. It will be the worst naval disaster in United States history. But what if it never happened? What if, on that quiet Sunday morning, there were 4 F-22 Raptors on combat air patrol over Pearl Harbor? The most advanced fighter jet ever built, defending a base in 1941. Welcome to What If War. Today, we're rewriting the day that changed everything. Let's set the scene. It's 7:02 a.m., 46 minutes before the first bomb falls. 4 F-22 Raptors are cruising at 25,000 feet, 50 miles north of Oahu. Standard patrol. The pilots are relaxed. It's just another morning. And then the radar lights up. Not one contact, not 10, 183 aircraft inbound fast. The lead pilot's voice cuts through the radio. Contacts bearing 020, multiple bogies. This is not a drill. In 1941, the Japanese strike force is invisible, flying low, using cloud cover. The Americans at Pearl Harbor have no idea they're coming. But the F-22, it sees everything. The APG-77 radar can track over 100 targets simultaneously from 150 miles away. The Japanese Zeros, Vals, and Kates, they're flying metal death traps with the radar cross-section of a barn. They might as well be screaming, "Shoot me," into the sky. The F-22 pilots don't panic. They've trained for this. Engage at range, maintain stealth, prioritize high-value targets. Each Raptor carries 6 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles, beyond visual range. Fire and forget. The Japanese won't even know they're under attack until their planes start exploding. The lead pilot locks onto the first wave, bomber formations, slow, vulnerable. He fires. The missile streaks through the sky at Mach 4. 20 seconds later, a Japanese Aichi D-3A dive bomber disintegrates in mid-air. The pilot never saw it coming. Then another, and another. Within 3 minutes, 12 Japanese bombers are gone. The sky is filling with debris and smoke, and the Japanese have no idea what's killing them. Now here's where it gets interesting. The Japanese pilots are some of the best in the world. Veterans of the war in China, fearless, disciplined, but they're fighting an enemy they can't see, can't hear, can't comprehend. One Zero pilot sees his wingman explode. No warning, no tracer fire, just gone. He radios back to the carrier, "We are under attack." By what? He doesn't know. The F-22 is invisible to their eyes and their primitive radios. To them, it's like fighting ghosts. Or gods. The psychological impact is immediate and devastating. Panic spreads through the formation. Some pilots break off. Others dive for the deck, thinking they're safer low. They're not. The F-22s adjust, drop altitude, switch to guns. The M61 Vulcan cannon spits 20mm rounds at 6,000 rounds per minute. A Zero banks hard, trying to evade. The F-22 pilot barely moves the stick. The Zero is doing maybe 300 miles per hour. The Raptor? It's cruising at 600 without breaking a sweat. It's not a dogfight. It's target practice. By 7:30 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft is shattered. Out of 183 planes, maybe 40 are still flying, and they're scattered, disorganized, terrified. Commander Mitsuo Fuchida, leading the attack, radios desperately to the second wave. "Abort! Abort! We are being massacred." But the second wave is already in the air. 171 more aircraft. They have no idea what's waiting for them. And that's when the F-22s do something the Japanese could never anticipate. They rearm. In our scenario, let's say there's a forward rearming point. Maybe a cargo plane drops supplies. Maybe ground crew has pre-positioned missiles. It doesn't matter. The point is, the Raptors are back in the air. fully loaded, ready. The second wave arrives at 8:50 a.m. They see the smoke, the wreckage, burning planes in the water, and they hesitate. That hesitation is fatal. The F-22s are already behind them, stealth mode, unseen. The Japanese pilots are looking forward toward Pearl Harbor, expecting anti-aircraft fire, maybe a few outdated P-40s. What they get is a wall of missiles from behind. AIM-120s again, fired in ripple mode. One Raptor takes out 6 targets in under a minute. The sky becomes a graveyard. Burning Zeros tumble into the ocean. Torpedo bombers explode before releasing their payloads. The few aircraft that make it through the gauntlet are so rattled, so disoriented, that their bombing runs are sloppy. Most miss. The ones that don't? Pearl Harbor's anti-aircraft guns, now fully alert, shred them. By 9:15 a.m. it's over. The attack on Pearl Harbor has failed completely. The Japanese lose over 300 aircraft, hundreds of their best pilots dead or captured. And the Americans? 0 ships sunk, maybe a dozen planes damaged on the ground by the few bombs that got through. But the fleet is intact, operational, and very, very angry. Now let's talk about what this means, because this isn't just about one battle. This is about rewriting the entire Pacific War. In the real timeline, Pearl Harbor crippled the U.S. Pacific Fleet. It gave Japan 6 months of total dominance. They took the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, Wake Island, Guam. They built an empire. But in our timeline, that doesn't happen because the fleet is still there. The battleships that were supposed to be on the ocean floor are steaming west, ready for war. The carriers that were luckily at sea during the real attack, now they have backup, overwhelming backup. The Japanese strategy was based on one critical assumption: destroy the American fleet, buy time, build defenses, and hope for a negotiated peace. But that assumption just evaporated. Within weeks, American intelligence is analyzing the wreckage. They recover pieces of F-22 missiles, stealth materials, avionics. Even if the technology is beyond their ability to fully replicate in 1941, they learn. The mere existence of the F-22 accelerates American aviation development by decades. Suddenly, the US knows that stealth is possible, that radar-guided missiles work, that dogfights are obsolete. The P-51 Mustang, the P-38 Lightning, the Hellcat, all of these aircraft are redesigned with lessons learned from the Raptor. And the Japanese, they're shattered. Psychologically, strategically, materially. Their entire officer corps is trying to explain to Emperor Hirohito how they lost 300 planes to 4 enemy aircraft they never even saw. Imagine that briefing. Imagine trying to explain that American technology is so advanced. It's like fighting demons. Some Japanese generals argue for immediate peace negotiations. Others want revenge, demand a second attack. But it doesn't matter what they want, because they've lost the initiative. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, supposedly said after the real raid, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." In our timeline, he's not just worried, he's terrified. Because the giant wasn't just awakened, it was never even touched. And now it's coming. The Doolittle raid doesn't happen in April 1942. It happens in January, with full naval support. American carriers, escorted by battleships that should be sunk, launch a devastating raid on Tokyo. Japanese air defenses are unprepared. The psychological blow is catastrophic. The Battle of Midway doesn't need to happen. The Japanese Navy is already broken. Their carrier fleet, which was supposed to dominate the Pacific, is forced into a defensive posture. The Americans, emboldened by their impossible victory at Pearl Harbor, go on the offensive immediately. But here's the real question, the question that makes this scenario so fascinating. Would the F-22s even be there for the rest of the war? Think about it. 4 F-22 Raptors in 1941, no spare parts, no maintenance facilities, no compatible fuel, though let's assume they can adapt. Every flight risks a mechanical failure that can't be fixed. Every missile fired is one less in an irreplaceable arsenal. By mid-1942, maybe 1 or 2 Raptors are still operational. The others are grounded, cannibalized for parts, put in museums. Or maybe, just maybe, they're reverse-engineered. American engineers working around the clock try to understand the magic. They can't build another F-22, not even close, but they take the concepts. Stealth shaping, fly-by-wire controls, advanced alloys, and they apply them to 1940s technology. The result? Aircraft that are decades ahead of anything the Axis powers can field. By 1943, the war in the Pacific is effectively over. Japan, unable to compete, unable to defend its conquests, sues for peace. The atomic bombs never dropped because they're not needed. The Soviets, seeing the US completely dominant in the Pacific, reconsider their plans for Eastern Europe. The Cold War begins differently. Maybe doesn't begin at all. The entire shape of the 20th century changes, all because of 4 fighter jets. And one impossible morning. But let's bring it back to Pearl Harbor. To that moment. 7:48 a.m., the moment the bombs were supposed to fall. In our timeline, they don't. The sailors eating breakfast hear the roar of jet engines overhead. They look up, see 4 sleek, impossible aircraft patrolling the sky. They don't know what they are, but they feel safe. The Japanese pilots, the ones who survive, are captured, interrogated. They describe the Americans' invisible demons, the thunder from nowhere. Intelligence officers don't believe them at first, until they see the gun camera footage from the F-22s, until they see Japanese Zeros, the pride of the Imperial Navy, swatted from the sky like insects. And somewhere, in a bunker deep below Tokyo, Admiral Yamamoto stares at the reports. 300 aircraft lost. 4 American fighters. He sets down the paper, lights a cigarette, and says quietly to no one in particular, "We have already lost this war." December 7th, 1941. The day that was supposed to live in infamy. The day that was supposed to change everything. In our timeline, it does change everything, just not the way Japan intended, because sometimes the difference between victory and defeat isn't strategy or courage or numbers. Sometimes it's just technology so advanced it might as well be magic. And on that quiet Sunday morning, Pearl Harbor had magic on its side. So what do you think? Could 4 F-22s really change the entire war? Would Japan have surrendered earlier? Or would they have adapted, found a way to counter the impossible? That was What If War, where history meets imagination and the future rewrites the past. If you want more scenarios like this, hit that subscribe button. Because next week we're dropping a modern aircraft carrier into the Battle of Trafalgar, Nelson versus nuclear power. You won't want to miss it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Could the F-22 have saved Pearl Harbor, or is there something we missed? Stay tactical, stay curious, and remember, in war, the impossible is just one lucky break away from becoming reality.